This story is titled, My Brother and His Wife Lived in My Home Rent-Free. He repaid me by sleeping with my wife, so I destroyed their life. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Okay Reddit, this is going to be a long one. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. Still can't believe I'm actually writing this out, but I need to get this off my chest. Maybe it'll help someone else avoid the same mistakes I made. Fair warning, this story is pretty messed up and involves family betrayal, cheating, and basically my whole life falling apart. So this whole nightmare started about a year and a half ago when my older brother Mason, 42 male, and his wife Bella showed up at my door, looking like they'd just lost everything. I'm 39, married to Rachel, 37 at the time, with a teenage son Noah, 15, and our golden retriever Max. We had a pretty good life. Nothing fancy but comfortable, you know? Decent house in a nice neighborhood, steady job in IT that pays the bills, the usual suburban life stuff. Mason's always been that typical, successful older brother type. At least that's what everyone thought. Ever since we were kids, he was the golden child who could do no wrong. Always had this way of walking into a room like he owned the place, talking big about his business ventures and investments. Mom and Dad basically worshipped the ground he walked on. Meanwhile, I was the quiet brother who just did his own thing. Didn't mind it though, less pressure that way. So when Mason and Bella showed up that day, something was obviously wrong. Mason looked like he hadn't slept in days, wearing a wrinkled button-up that definitely hadn't seen an iron in weeks. Bella was standing behind him, quiet as a mouse, which was weird because she's usually pretty chatty. They sat at our kitchen table. Noah was at school, Rachel at work, and Mason started explaining how his business had gone under. According to him, the economy had screwed him over. Investors pulled out last minute. Suppliers didn't deliver. Basically every excuse in the book. They'd lost their house, drowning in debt, the whole 9 yards. Bella had some remote bookkeeping job, but it wasn't enough to keep them afloat. Mason kept saying they just needed a place to crash for a few weeks until he could get things sorted out. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even think twice about helping them. Like, he's my big bro, you know? That's what family does. We help each other out when shit hits the fan. Plus, we had this spare room that was basically just collecting dust. Used to be Noah's playroom when he was little, but now it was just storage for random Christmas decorations and old furniture. Max, our golden, was super excited about having new people in the house at first. He's one of those dogs that thinks everyone who walks through the door is there specifically to pet him. Mason used to be good with him when we were kids, and had a family dog, so I figured it'd be fine. Noah was a different story though. He's a pretty typical teenager, spends most of his time gaming or doing stuff with his friends online. When we told him his aunt and uncle were staying with us for a while, he just shrugged and went back to whatever game he was playing. Teenagers, am I right? The first few days were actually kind of nice, in a weird way. Bella helped Rachel cook dinner, Mason would walk Max with me in the evenings, and it almost felt like some kind of extended family vacation. They set up in the spare room pretty quick, though they brought way more stuff than people who were only planning to stay a few weeks should have. I remember sitting on the back porch with Mason one night that first week, having a beer while Max chased fireflies around the yard. He was talking about all these opportunities he had lined up, how he just needed a little time to get back on his feet. Said he had connections in the industry, people who owed him favors, that kind of thing. I bought it all hook, line, and sinker. God, I was such an idiot. The first couple months with Mason and Bella actually weren't terrible. I mean, looking back now, I can see all the red flags. But at the time, I was like that meme with the dog sitting in the burning house saying, "This is fine." You know the one. Mason was supposedly job hunting during the day, while Bella did her remote work thing. Neither of them were early birds. They'd roll out of bed around 10 or 11 most days. I didn't think much of it, 'cause hey, if I was unemployed, I'd probably sleep in too. Bella would set up her laptop at our kitchen table and do whatever bookkeeping stuff she did, while Mason would sit on our couch with his phone, claiming he was networking and reaching out to contacts. The weird thing was, they actually helped out around the house at first. Bella would cook these elaborate dinners sometimes, though Rachel had to buy all the ingredients, and Mason would take Max for these super long walks. Looking back, those walks were probably when he was making sketchy phone calls, but again, I was being a blind idiot. Our routine kind of shifted to accommodate them. Rachel would leave for her nursing shifts early in the morning, and I'd head to the office around 8. Noah would catch the bus to school, and Max would just chill with Mason and Bella during the day. That dog actually seemed to like them at first, which is hilarious now considering how things turned out. But there were these little things that should have set off alarm bells in my head. Like how Mason would stay up super late, drinking my expensive whiskey, the good stuff I only break out for special occasions, and talking my ear off about these crazy business ideas. One night he spent 2 hours explaining his plan for a cryptocurrency for dog owners. I shit you not. Dogecoin but better was his exact pitch. I sat there nodding like an idiot while he rambled on about blockchain and market penetration and whatever other buzzwords he'd picked up. Bella was quieter about their plans to stay, but she definitely had her ways of making it clear they weren't leaving anytime soon. While Rachel started working more night shifts around this time, said the pay was better, Noah was still doing his teenager thing, but he and Mason actually seemed to get along okay at first. Mason would try to give him life advice about girls and school and stuff. Noah would just kind of nod and go back to his games, but at least they weren't fighting or anything. The money situation was still pretty weird, though. Mason kept talking about these big deals that were just about to close, and how he'd be back on his feet any day now. Meanwhile, Bella's remote job seemed legit enough, but somehow they never had money for groceries or to chip in for utilities. I started noticing our grocery bill basically doubled. Rachel didn't seem to mind buying extra food at first. She's always been generous like that. But Mason and Bella had expensive tastes. They'd add stuff to our shopping list like organic this, gluten-free that, fancy coffee beans that cost more than I make in an hour. I also noticed how Mason and Bella were acting weird when they thought no one was watching. I came home early from work one day and heard them arguing in their room. Bella was saying something about being careful and not rushing things. Mason was all everything's under control and trust the plan. At the time, I thought they were talking about their financial situation. Anyways, around month 4 is when everything started going to shit. Remember how I said Mason was job hunting? Yeah, that was a complete lie. Dude wasn't even trying anymore. He'd sleep until like 2 p.m. some days, then spend the rest of the afternoon watching YouTube videos about crypto and passive income streams at full volume in our living room. The job thing became pretty obvious when I came home early one day, had a dentist appointment, and found him playing Call of Duty on Noah's PS5. Not even job hunting on his phone or anything, just straight up gaming in his boxers at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. When I asked him about it, he gave me this whole speech about how traditional employment is a scam and how he was building his personal brand instead. Whatever TF that means. Bella was still working her remote job, but man, she got weird about it. Like really weird. She started complaining about her boss all the time. Every dinner conversation turned into a rant about how her company didn't appreciate her expertise or whatever. Rachel tried to be supportive at first, but even she started looking annoyed after hearing the same complaints for the 50th time. The real problem started with the little things, you know? Like they completely stopped buying groceries. Just expected me and Rachel to feed them like they were our kids or something. Bella would make these passive-aggressive comments about how we were out of almond milk again, or the coffee's not the brand I usually drink. Like, go buy your own damn coffee then? And don't even get me started on how they treated our space. Bella decided our living room had bad feng shui, or some BS like that. I came home one day and all our furniture was rearranged. The couch that was perfect for watching TV, now it's facing the wrong way because it improves energy flow. The family photos we had on the walls, taken down because they were blocking the room's natural harmony. I wish I was making this up. Max started acting super weird around this time too. He used to sleep in the living room, but he started camping out in Noah's room instead. The fighting between Mason and Bella got intense too. Like wall-shaking screaming matches at 2 a.m. kind of intense. They'd fight about the dumbest things. Money, obviously, whose turn it was to do dishes, which neither of them ever did, why Bella was undermining Mason's business plans. One time they had a full-on screaming match because Mason had used Bella's special coffee mug. I'm not even kidding. But here's the part that really pissed me off. They started treating Noah like their personal servant. Noah, can you grab me water? Noah, go walk Max for us. Noah, why don't you order us some pizza with your allowance? My 15-year-old kid. And the worst part? They'd get all huffy if he said no or was busy with homework. The money situation was getting ridiculous too. Mason started with the loans. Always small amounts at first. Hey bro, can I get $20 for gas? Mind spotting me $50 until Friday? Never paid back a single cent. Then the amount started getting bigger. One time he had the balls to ask me for $500 for some investment opportunity that was guaranteed to pay off. Rachel was working crazy hours at this point. Lots of night shifts and extra shifts. Said it was because they needed nurses and the pay was good, but now I'm wondering if she was just trying to avoid being home. Can't blame her, honestly. The vibe in the house was toxic AF. Then one morning, Bella came downstairs, red-eyed and sniffling, claiming her company was restructuring and she'd been let go. She went on about how it was so unfair and how she'd given them everything, like she hadn't spent half her workdays scrolling at my kitchen table. Mason put on his best supportive husband act, rubbing her back, but the second she looked away, he rolled his eyes. Real nice, bro. Instead of talking about finding a new job, Bella just sighed, grabbed my coffee mug, and muttered something about needing a mental reset first. Because of course. I tried to stay positive, kept telling myself it was temporary. But man, the signs were all there. Mason wasn't looking for work, Bella was getting more entitled by the day, and my house felt like it was being taken over by the world's worst house guests. Oh, and remember Max's weird behavior? He started growling at Mason sometimes, especially when Mason would come home late at night. Should have trusted my dog's judgment, but I was too busy trying to be the good brother. By month 5, my house felt like it wasn't even mine anymore. You know that feeling when you're staying at someone else's place and you're super conscious about not touching their stuff or taking up too much space? That's how I felt, in my own damn house. At that point, Mason and Bella had basically taken over everything. The garage situation got so bad I had to park my car on the street. One time it got hit by a neighbor's kid on their bike, and when I asked Mason to move some of their stuff so I could park inside again, he gave me this whole lecture about how families should be more understanding and how their stuff was valuable business inventory. The kitchen became Bella's domain. She'd spend hours in there making these complicated meals, then get mad if anyone came in while she was cooking because it disturbed her process. The money thing got completely out of control. Mason stopped even pretending he was going to pay me back. He'd just walk up like, "Hey bro, gonna need about $200, and expect me to hand it over. No explanation, no timeline for repayment, nothing. One time I saw him buying expensive whiskey at the liquor store right after telling me he needed money for essential medications. My kid started eating dinner in his room because he couldn't stand being around them. Mason would give him these long lectures about respecting your elders whenever Noah didn't jump to do whatever they wanted. Bella would make these snide comments about his grades and how he spent too much time playing games. Like they had any right to criticize when they were living rent-free and contributing nothing. Oh, and get this. They started having friends over. Not just 1 or 2 people, but like full-on dinner parties. In my house. Without asking. One time I came home to find 8 random people in my living room, drinking my good scotch and eating a meal Bella had prepared with groceries Rachel had bought that morning. When I tried to talk to Mason about it, he just laughed and said, "Come on, bro, lighten up. We're making connections." Connections for what? His imaginary business? The only thing he was connecting with was the bottom of my liquor bottles. One night, after another exhausting day of dealing with Mason and Bella, Rachel and I got into it again. "I don't get why they're still here," I said, rubbing my temples. "We agreed this was temporary. How much longer are we supposed to be understanding of their situation?" Rachel sighed, already annoyed. "It's not that simple," she said. "They don't have anywhere else to go right now." "Come on, that's not true," I shot back. "Mason could stay with a friend. Bella still has a job. They're not helpless." "They just need more time," she insisted. "Why are you being so rigid about this?" "Because it's been months, Rachel. And meanwhile, you've been acting weird too. Your schedule keeps changing, and you never actually say which unit you're working in." "What's that about?" Her whole body tensed. "Why are you suddenly interrogating me?" she snapped. "I told you, the hospital's been moving me around." "Yeah? Which unit?" I pressed. She hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. "Does it even matter?" she shot back, crossing her arms. "God, I don't need to give you a full report every day." That hesitation should have been my red flag. But between playing host to my freeloading brother and his wife, and trying to keep my own house from becoming a complete circus, I was too distracted to realize I was missing something massive. And Noah was totally checked out by this point. Can't blame him. Imagine being 15 and having your aunt and uncle basically take over your house and treat you like their personal servant. One day I overheard Mason telling him that video games are for losers and that he should man up and get a real hobby. This coming from a 42-year-old dude who spent most of his day watching crypto YouTubers and playing with my son's PS5 when Noah was at school. Max started doing this thing where he'd whine at Rachel whenever she came home from her night shifts. Not his usual happy dog whine, but this sad, worried sound. He'd follow her around the house with his tail down, which was super weird for him because he's usually the happiest dog ever. I figured he was just picking up on all the tension in the house, but boy was I wrong. Speaking of Rachel, she started getting really jumpy around her phone. Would literally take it with her to the bathroom, never left it lying around. Said it was because she needed to be available for work emergencies, but since when do nurses need that level of privacy? Again, I was being a complete idiot. Mason's behavior got even more ridiculous. He started working out in our living room at like 6 a.m., playing his motivational podcast at full volume. When I asked him to keep it down because people were sleeping, he went off about how successful people rise early and how we should be thanking him for bringing positive energy into the house. One weekend, Rachel and Noah were supposed to do their monthly baking thing. It was like their special bonding time or whatever. They'd make a bunch of cookies and watch movies together. But when they went to the kitchen, Bella had it completely taken over. She was doing some kind of meal prep thing for her non-existent food blog. Rachel actually tried to be nice about it, asked if they could maybe share the space. Bella just waved her off like she was shooing away a fly and said, "You can do that another time. I'm in the middle of something important." The look on Noah's face. Man, that killed me. He just turned around and went back to his room without saying a word. That night, Rachel came to bed actually mad for once. Like, usually she was super chill about everything. Now I know why. But this time, she was pissed. "This has to stop," she said. "They're ruining everything." Rich coming from her, looking back. But at the time, I was just glad someone else was finally saying it. The final straw for me was when Mason and Bella started talking about expanding their business into our basement. They wanted to convert my home office gaming room into their startup headquarters, or some BS like that. When I said no, Mason actually tried to guilt trip me by bringing up how I'd played down there all the time when we were kids, and our parents let us use the basement. We didn't even have a basement growing up. We lived in an apartment. He was so used to lying he couldn't even keep his own childhood straight. I started staying late at work just to avoid going home. Found myself sitting in my car in the parking lot, scrolling through Reddit, doing anything to delay walking into that mess. Even Max seemed depressed. He stopped bringing his toys to people and just kind of existed in the corners of rooms. But everything changed one morning. Everything went from bad to completely fucked up. I was getting ready for work, Noah was eating breakfast, and Max was doing his usual begging for bacon thing. Bella came downstairs with this massive suitcase, looking like she hadn't slept all night. Mason was still passed out, probably sleeping off another night of drinking my whiskey. Bella just stood there in our kitchen for a minute, staring at her coffee mug, the special one she'd been so crazy about. Then she looks at me and goes, "I can't do this anymore." Just straight up drops that bomb while I'm trying to make my morning coffee. I figured she meant living with us, which honestly would have been great news at that point. But nope. She starts crying, but like angry crying. Looked at Noah and went, "I'm sorry, kid." Weird. Grabbed her keys and just left. Didn't even close the door behind her. Max, who usually barks at everything that moves, didn't make a sound. Just sat there watching her leave with this look on his face like, finally. I swear that dog knew everything before any of us did. When Mason finally dragged himself downstairs around noon, seriously, who sleeps till noon when they're in their 40s? He acted weird about Bella leaving. Like too calm? You'd think a guy whose wife just walked out would be freaking out, but nope. He just shrugged and said, "She'll be back. She's probably just being dramatic." But she didn't come back. Not that day, not the next day, nothing. Mason kept acting like it was no big deal. Started staying out late, coming home at weird hours smelling like he'd bathed in cologne. I thought maybe he was out drinking away his sorrows or something. God, I was stupid. Rachel's behavior got even weirder after Bella left. Started taking even more night shifts, changed her phone password, and would get these texts that made her smile in this way I'd never seen before. Red flag 3472 that I ignored like an idiot. Noah actually seemed relieved that Bella was gone. Started coming out of his room more, using the kitchen again. But he kept giving Mason these weird looks, especially when Mason would come home late at night or when Rachel would leave for her shifts. Mason actually had the balls to ask me for more money after Bella left, said he needed it for divorce lawyers or something. But I'd see him the next day wearing new clothes or ordering expensive shit on Amazon. Then the weird late night stuff started. I'd wake up at like 3 a.m. to get water or whatever, and Mason wouldn't be home. But Rachel's car would be in the driveway, even though she was supposed to be at work. When I'd ask her about it the next day, she'd get all defensive and say stuff like, "Oh, I got sent home early," or "We were overstaffed." About 2 weeks after Bella left, I started connecting some dots, like how Rachel and Mason would both be on their phones at the same time, smirking at whatever they were reading, or how they'd both disappear for smoke breaks, even though Rachel quit smoking years ago. I was still too dumb to put it all together, though. Kept making excuses in my head. Maybe they were both just dealing with stress differently. Maybe Rachel was picking up extra shifts to help with bills since Mason still wasn't working. Maybe Max was just being weird because the house felt different without Bella. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and Rachel wasn't in bed. Heard voices downstairs, figured she'd just gotten home from her shift early again. Didn't think much of it until I heard laughing. Like, flirty laughing. I remember lying there in bed, staring at the ceiling, while Max whined softly from his bed in the corner. Pretty sure he was trying to tell me what was up, but I still wasn't ready to face it. 2 weeks after Bella bounced, I was sitting at work pretending to care about spreadsheets when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Bella. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely open it. "We need to talk. Not over text. Can you meet me?" That's when my stomach dropped into my shoes. You know that feeling when you know you're about to hear something that's gonna change your life forever? Yeah, that. We met at this coffee shop across town. Bella looked rough, like she hadn't slept in days. She was wearing the same sweater she had on when she left, and her hands were shaking worse than mine. "I need to show you something," she said, pulling out her phone. "And I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry." Guys, what she showed me, I can't even... Okay, deep breath. Pictures. Dozens of them. Rachel and Mason together. Not just like hanging out together, but together. In my house. In my fucking bed. While I was at work. While Noah was upstairs. Timestamps going back months. Text messages too, hundreds of them. All the night shifts? Yeah, those weren't hospital shifts. Mason and Rachel had been meeting up at some cheap motel by the highway. All those times Rachel's schedule changed suddenly? She was with my brother. Apparently Bella had known for weeks. That's why she left. She'd found out about their affair and confronted Mason, and you know what that piece of shit said? It just happened. We couldn't help it. Couldn't help it. Couldn't help it. Like what? You just accidentally fell into bed with your brother's wife? Multiple times? For months? I just sat there in that coffee shop, staring at Bella's phone, while my entire world imploded. The barista probably thought I was having a stroke or something. "There's more," Bella said. Because of course there was more. Turns out Rachel and Mason had been planning to run away together. They were waiting until they had enough money saved up, probably all the cash they'd been mooching from me. How's that for irony? They were going to move to fucking Florida of all places. Had an apartment picked out and everything. I drove home in a daze. Almost hit a mailbox. Kept thinking about Noah, about Max, about all the signs I'd missed. Max growling at Mason. Rachel's weird work schedule. The late night smoke breaks. God, I was so fucking blind. When I got home, Mason was sprawled on my couch, watching my TV. Rachel was at work. I just stood there looking at him. This person who was supposed to be my brother. And I felt nothing. Just empty. Then he had the balls to ask me for money for takeout. "How long?" I asked him. He looked confused for a second. Then this smirk appeared on his face. A fucking smirk. Like this was all some big joke. "Bella told you, huh?" He actually laughed. "Look, bro, these things happen. Rachel and I just connected. You've been working so much." She was lonely. I don't really remember what happened next. According to Noah, who came downstairs when he heard the yelling, I just started laughing, like hysterical laughing. Then I called Rachel. She answered on the first ring. Probably thought it was Mason. "Come home. Now." That's all I said. When she got home 20 minutes later, guess that night shift wasn't so important after all, she took one look at Mason's face and knew. She didn't even try to deny it. Just stood there with this weird calm expression while I completely lost my shit. "How could you?" I kept asking. "He's my brother. My fucking brother." You know what she said? "You're never home anymore. Mason understands me. We didn't mean for this to happen." Noah heard everything. My 15-year-old kid had to hear his mom try to justify fucking his uncle. Max was going crazy, barking and running between all of us, like he was trying to break up a fight. Mason tried to play it cool, leaning back like this was just another one of his smooth-talking moments. "Look, man, these things happen in families," he said. "We can work through this." I was still trying to process the sheer audacity of it when he decided to throw the match into the gasoline. He smirked. Actually fucking smirked and said, "Maybe if you'd been a better husband, this wouldn't have happened." That's when I lost it. I lunged at him before I even realized what I was doing, shoving him back so hard he crashed into the side table, knocking over a lamp. Max started barking, but I barely heard it over the blood roaring in my ears. Mason scrambled up, hands raised like he was some innocent victim in all this. "You have always been like this," I spat. "Always skating by, screwing up, and expecting everyone else to clean up your mess. And mom and dad? They let you. They coddled you your whole damn life, made excuse after excuse while I had to be the responsible one. And now this? My wife? My fucking wife? Mason? Mason wiped his mouth, looking more annoyed than guilty. You're overreacting. Overreacting? I laughed. You're sleeping with my wife? In my house? And I'm overreacting? Are you actually this delusional? Rachel tried to step between us, hands shaking, voice breaking. Please, let's just... No, I snapped, pointing at her without taking my eyes off Mason. You don't get to smooth this over. You don't get to cry and pretend you're the victim here. Mason had the balls to look offended. Come on, man, we're family. We should what? Hug it out? Have a nice little heart-to-heart? You are not my brother anymore. Get the fuck out. Both of you. Rachel broke down, full on sobbing, trying to plead with me. I need time to pack, to talk to Noah. You lost the right to explain anything to Noah when you decided to fuck his uncle, I said coldly. Mason straightened up. This is why she wanted me, he muttered. You're so damn rigid, so dramatic. I stepped toward him again, and this time he had enough sense to back up. Take your shit or I'm burning it, I said, voice low and steady. I don't care where you go. Just get out. Mason glared, but he didn't push it. Instead, he grabbed his keys and stormed out, muttering curses under his breath. Rachel hesitated for a second, like she thought there was still something left to salvage, but I just turned away from her. She left a minute later, Mason in his car, Rachel in hers, probably headed straight to their favorite motel. Noah locked himself in his room. Max curled up outside his door, whining softly all night. I just stood there in the wreckage of my living room, surrounded by broken trust and shattered memories, wondering how the hell my life had turned into this mess. And well, it's been about 8 months since everything went down. A lot's changed, some good, some bad. All of it necessary, I guess. The divorce was ugly, like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Rachel tried to get half of everything, including the house. Can you believe that? Her lawyer actually tried to argue that her affair with Mason was partly my fault because I created an environment that fostered their connection by letting them live with us. Yeah, silly me for checks notes helping my brother when he needed it. Thankfully, the judge wasn't buying any of that BS. When the evidence of their affair came out, thanks Bella for keeping those texts, Rachel's case pretty much imploded. She ended up with way less than she wanted, which honestly felt like the only win in this whole mess. Mason and Rachel actually tried to make it work in Florida. It lasted about 3 months. Turns out when you build a relationship on lies and betrayal, it doesn't make for a great foundation. Who knew? Got a text from Rachel last week saying Mason cheated on her with some bartender at the beach bar, where he finally got a job. Karma's a bitch, huh? She wanted to talk about fixing things with me and Noah. I left her on red. Some things just can't be fixed. Noah. Man, that kid is stronger than I ever was at his age. He's in therapy twice a week, which Rachel tried to fight me on paying for. Real nice. Mom of the year right there. He's actually doing better than I expected. His grades are back up, and he's starting to hang out with his friends again. The hardest part was when Rachel tried to get shared custody. Noah straight up told the judge he wanted to live with me full time. You should have seen Rachel's face when he said that. Think that's when it finally hit her what she'd really lost. We moved out of the old house. Too many bad memories. Found a smaller place closer to Noah's school. It's actually better. Less space to clean, lower bills, and a big backyard for Max. Speaking of Max, that good boy is living his best life now. No more weird tension in the house. No more having to avoid certain people. He's back to his happy, goofy self. Bella and I keep in touch, weirdly enough. Not like that. Don't get any ideas. We just check in sometimes, make sure the other one's doing okay. She moved to Seattle, got a real bookkeeping job, and started dating some guy who builds custom furniture or something. Good for her. Mason tried to apologize a few weeks ago. Sent this long text about how he was going through something and how he never meant to hurt anyone. Said he wanted to rebuild our brotherhood. I sent back a picture of my middle finger and blocked his number. The really crazy part? Rachel and Mason both tried to add me on LinkedIn last month. Like, what did they think was gonna happen? Oh, hey, sorry I fucked your brother wife, want to network. Get bent. Mom and Dad took it hard. They're in their 70s. This kind of drama is the last thing they needed. They've been amazing with Noah, though. Dad takes him fishing every other weekend, and Mom's teaching him how to cook, something Rachel never bothered with. As for me, I'm doing okay. Started going to the gym. Typical Reddit advice, I know, but it actually helps. Got a promotion at work. Turns out when you're not spending all your energy dealing with toxic people, you can actually focus on your career. Dating? Yeah. Turns out, I wasn't as closed off to it as I thought. It started slow, just grabbing coffee with this woman I met at the gym. Nothing serious at first, just two people talking, no pressure. But then one coffee turned into a few late-night walks, and before I knew it, I was actually looking forward to seeing her. Her name's Alyssa. She's sharp, funny, and doesn't take shit from anyone, which, after everything, is honestly refreshing. She's got this way of calling me out when I'm being stubborn, but somehow making it feel like a challenge instead of an argument. Noah likes her too, which is huge. He's been wary of people after everything that went down, but he actually laughs around her, jokes with her. And Max? The moment she walked in the door, tail wags and instant approval. That was all the confirmation I needed. Noah and I have our routines now. We do breakfast together every morning, something we never had time for before. He's teaching me how to play some of his video games. I still suck, but I think he enjoys watching me fail. We got really into making homemade pizza on weekends. Small stuff, but it matters. And sometimes Alyssa joins us. Feels natural, easy. No drama, no bullshit, just good company. Max still sleeps in Noah's room most nights. I think it helps them both feel more secure. The goodest boy knew all along. We should have listened to him sooner. Last week, I saw Mason's car at a gas station. He didn't see me. He looked rough, unshaved, wearing a wrinkled uniform from that beach bar. Part of me wanted to feel satisfied seeing him like that. But mostly I just felt nothing. That's progress, right? So yeah, that's where things stand. Life's different now, but different isn't always bad. Noah's healing. I'm healing. Max is happy. And for the first time in a long time, I'm actually looking forward to what's next. Edit 2. Thanks for all the awards. But please donate to your local animal shelter instead. Max was a rescue, and they do amazing work. Edit 2. Yes, we still have the special coffee mug. No, you can't buy it. Final update. To everyone asking, yes, I've changed all my passwords, set up cameras in the new house, and got a lawyer. Reddit advice actually came through for once.